Welcome to the Capitol News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is April 17th, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone is doing well today. A couple stories that I want to talk about today. Really, it's all wrapped up in one, and this has to do with the Bob Mueller report being released to both the public and Congress tomorrow. And set your timers, folks, because Attorney General Bill Barr is set to have a conference 9:30 tomorrow morning with a statement in regards to the report. I also believe Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein will also be present, and he also may be making some comments in regards to the summary and to the overall report. Now, of course, we have the Democrats crying foul. This is no surprise. Well, this is just going to be, the president and his administration getting out to sort of shape the debate and the argument. And, well, that's not entirely true now, is it? Because if they're going to actually release the report, now, of course, it's going to be a redacted version. We know this. If there's grand jury testimony in there, if there's peripheral entities in this investigation, we're not going to do harm to people who are not going to be prosecuted, okay? We're not going to make everybody's lives hell. We're not going to make everything a political frenzy. So there's going to be some information that has to do with spying, okay? Whether it was from the Russians interfering with our elections, which is no surprise. No surprise. This does not just happen in 2016, but we know there was no Trump-Russia collusion, and there was no obstruction. Now, there might be some back and forth on that, but that's just basically going to be lawyers arguing either side of the law, which is what lawyers do. So there might be a case in some people's camp that says, well, maybe the president did obstruct justice. But Bob Mueller didn't come forward and say, well, we're going to move forward with those charges. In fact, he deferred. He punted. He said, no, you know what, Attorney General, you make the decision. Well, he did make a decision, and he said, we are not going to be prosecuting or charging the president with obstruction of justice. So that's what the Democrats are likely to hang their hat on, and that's what will be their argument as we go forward. Again, that's speculation right now, but that's probably what's likely to happen. There's probably also going to be some other things that aren't going to be too flattering, I would have to imagine, that occurred in regards to either President Trump himself or members of his campaign, or maybe some other organizations. Again, we don't know the full extent and how many different rabbit holes Bob Mueller and his investigative team went down. So that's what this is all about, right? Finding out a little bit more about this investigation. There will be redactions. That's okay. Will those ever be entirely released? I doubt it, but that's okay. Because I think in regards to other declassification of a lot of the FISA warrants, of a lot of the spying that actually took on during the Trump campaign, that's going to be the bombshell that comes out, hopefully, again, either during the spring or during the summer, but it has to come out. It just has to. Otherwise, there will be no draining of the swamp. The two-tier justice system that most definitely exists within this country will continue, and so that'll be just a huge travesty and failure on behalf of this administration. But again, we have the Democrats out there complaining. They're starting to get nervous, folks. They've been nervous. We've been having this conversation for the past couple months now because the truth is starting to come out drip by drip by drip. And this report is going to start being more of a drip drip. It's going to start waterfalling and cascading. That's what's going to come out now. So again, this all ties back into Bill Barr, Attorney General Bill Barr, being, chastised and ridiculed and criticized by the Democrats during his testimony when he said, I think spying on a political campaign is troubling. That's bad. It's not good. And, they said, oh, well, he's off the rails. He's off the rails, Nancy Pelosi said. You can't trust this guy. He's going off the rails. He's supposed to be the Attorney General of the country, not the Attorney General just for President Trump. Oh, well, give me a break. Give me a break. We've just been hearing the Democrats complaining about spying on a campaign for the past 2 or 3 years, and that was a huge problem. The president should have been impeached, should have been locked up, his family should have been locked up, everything. But no, when the Attorney General comes out and answers a question and says, yeah, spying on a campaign is a problem and it deserves being investigated, the Democrats say, oh, no, you can't do that. Very similar with the topic of the sanctuary cities that we've been discussing the past couple of days, where Trump just sort of tongue in cheek said, well, let's put them on a bus and send them to sanctuary cities. Oh no, you can't do that. That's not that. No. Again, the hypocrisy is right in your face. You just got to pay attention to it. I mean, you can't miss it. You cannot miss it. How Democrats let Democrats slide is beyond me, other than they just see that they do no wrong whatsoever. It's a complete bubble, and it's really hurting the country. Republicans are in their bubble too, but this really takes the cake, what we've been seeing and witnessing over the past couple years. And now it's all going to start coming out. And now it's going to be President Trump's turn to turn the tables on all of these Democrats and on the Obama administration. And that's what I want to get into, because right now everything else that we would be discussing in regards to the Bob Mueller report would just be speculation. And I don't want to go down that road because your guess is as good as mine. And there's going to be a lot of information that comes out tomorrow, obviously. But really, I think we have to take a deep breath here and really allow a lot of the legal experts, members who have been part of the FBI, the DOJ, and other just lawyers and legal scholars out there, and people who are aware of these investigative methods and procedures, to sift through this report, which is a few hundred pages long, at least that's what we're being told so far. Let them go through this. Let a few days go by. So basically, just let this play out tomorrow and Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and really see what starts to come out on the Sunday morning talk shows and on Monday, because that's when you're really going to have everybody who had time to really digest everything, go through the biggest parts of it, and then really say, okay, here's the most important bits and pieces of this. And that's what you got to pay attention to. I mean, tomorrow, Friday, all hell is going to break loose, because you're going to have Republicans saying the president's been exonerated. The White House is going to say the same thing. You're going to have Democrats saying, oh, no, look, here's something. Or, whoa, this whole spying thing, there is no such thing. This is ridiculous. You got to still go after Trump. You got to go after Barr. This whole investigation was a scam. This is what's going to come out. It's just going to be chaos for the next couple of days until there is some sanity. We're not going to get a lot of sanity. This is 2019 in the United States of America. There is not going to be a lot of sanity, but at least take a deep breath over the next couple of days. Let these quote-unquote experts, and obviously some of them really are, digest it, and then we'll hear a lot of this analysis on the Sunday morning talk shows and on Monday during the news cycle. And I think from that, then we'll get a better sense of what's going on. So just be mindful of that. But I want to step back and go to basically talk about a story, okay, in regards to the claim of spying on a political campaign being a problem, which it is. Nobody should disagree with this whatsoever. I think I may have brought this topic up before, maybe a couple months ago, but it's so hard to remember all of the names and faces and dates and all of this stuff because there's just so much news that has been coming out. I mean, we live in a 24/7 news cycle. There's just so much. So it's very easy to get behind and forget and all that stuff. But I want to go back here and retell this story, okay, because this is very important and it ties into all of this, where it wasn't the Trump campaign colluding or spying or doing any of that. It was the Obama administration, Democrats, members of the Justice Department, the FBI, basically spying on the Trump campaign when he was president-elect, quite possibly afterwards, and basically staging a coup against the 45th president of the United States. Now, nobody seems to care. Nobody seems to care because the mainstream media is bought and paid for, and the Democrats just want to hang and crucify Trump as quickly as possible. But that ain't happening now. So now they're shaking in their boots. So let's go back to what I want to talk about here. So remember these names, and we're going to go through them a few times here. So we have Admiral Mike Rogers. He was the former head of the NSA. We have James Clapper. He was the former director of national intelligence. And we have John Brennan, the former head and director of the CIA. Now, you still from time to time see James Clapper in the media. You do quite frequently see and hear from John Brennan. Mike Rogers, I don't think anybody's heard from him since he has left the NSA. Now, all three of these gentlemen worked in the Obama administration. Admiral Mike Rogers, I do believe, remained the head of NSA for a short while under President Trump, but he is no longer the head of NSA. Here's what's so important that we have to remember, because I think this is really sort of the linchpin in all of this. This was the genesis of all of this, okay? And a lot of you are going to remember this when I bring this up. At least I hope you do. When candidate Trump became President-elect Trump, he established his headquarters in Trump Tower in New York City, okay? You probably all remember a whole bunch of politicos and people jockeying for positions, being interviewed for positions within his government, whether at the cabinet level or somewhere else, ambassadorships. You even had some celebrities going in there just to basically address some issues with the president-elect, say, look, these are some things that we find important, yada, yada, yada. These are the social issues. I'm sure everybody remembers that scene. All of these big wigs walking into Trump Tower and then going to see the president-elect. What you may not recall is Admiral Mike Rogers. He visited Trump Tower. However, it is my understanding from the reports that I have read, he did not seek permission or seek approval from the Obama administration, nor did he tell anybody that he was going to Trump Tower to speak with the president-elect. Now, I don't know the inner workings. I don't know if he needed to seek permission or at least tell somebody that he was going to see the president-elect in Trump Tower, but he did, all right? I also don't know what the conversation was entirely about and how many people he spoke with during his meeting. It may have been a one-on-one with Donald Trump. There may have been a number of people. But what we do know is following this meeting, Donald Trump moved his team and his headquarters from Trump Tower in New York City to his golf club resort in Bedminster, New Jersey. Okay? We know after this meeting, that's where they went. Also, following this meeting, we had Donald Trump talking about that he was tapped. He was wiretapped. You know, this was shortly after this. All of this started to come out. That he was, look, I'm being spied on, my phones are tapped, yada, yada, yada. The mainstream media, the Democrats were saying, look, this guy's loony. We told you he was loony. He was crazy. He should never become president. Now, what are we starting to see? That there was no Trump-Russia collusion, was no obstruction of justice. And now, with all of the other investigations going on, with the Lisa Page testimony, the Peter Strzok testimony, specifically the Lisa Page testimony that we've gone through here on this podcast, we know the names and faces and characters and what was going on behind the scenes. So it's starting to flip, folks. It's starting to flip. This is integral, by the way, because Mike Rogers, again, according to the reports that I have read, was not liked by James Clapper and John Brennan. In fact, both of those guys went to President Obama earlier in 2016 and said, you know what, we don't care for Mike Rogers. I guess he wasn't part of the good old boys club. He wasn't a member of the clique. Obviously, this man was capable. He's an admiral in the U.S. Navy. He was promoted to the head of the NSA, obviously a trusted individual with the nation's most top secret of information, but he wasn't a good old boy. So James Clapper and John Brennan, I guess, didn't really have a lovey-dovey feeling for this guy. And we know this because look at what they were doing. They had an insurance policy set up in the event that candidate Donald Trump became president-elect Donald Trump. And we know this from the Lisa Page testimony and a whole bunch of other information that has been coming out. Of course, the mainstream media never said this to their followers and to their audiences, and that's why their ratings are plummeted, because nobody trusts them. This is the era of fake news, unfortunately. So this all ties in together. So James Clapper, John Brennan, they go to President Obama and say, look, we don't trust this guy. You got to fire him. You have to. President Obama said, no, we're not. I'm not going to fire him. Basically, this is 2016. It's a presidential election year. I mean, we don't need to draw attention to ourselves with anything. He didn't do anything. Okay. Now, following that little story that I just told you, where Admiral Rogers went to Trump Tower, and then there was a movement. Well, now James Clapper and John Brennan, they know what happened. Okay, they know what happened. He wouldn't have just moved for no reason whatsoever. And it happened right after Admiral Rogers met with them. So they could put the pieces together. Now, John Q. Public, you and I, we weren't really savvy to all of this at the time. We didn't know there was a big spy operation going on a presidential candidate and a president thereafter, because this thing just didn't end. And again, that goes to the whole staging of a coup within the FBI and the DOJ to overthrow the president, to call him crazy, to do whatever they could to get him out of there, to impeach him, whatever it took. Okay, we didn't know this at the time. We were just saying, all right, we have a new president-elect. He's meeting with people in Trump Tower. Well, now he wanted to go to his golf course. Nobody really was connecting any dots there, at least not most of us. But we weren't privy to all of that information. But guess who was? James Clapper and John Brennan. They were part of the insurance policy. They were at the heart of this spying operation. And evidently, Mike Rogers was not playing ball, or at least they had a eerie feeling about him. They just couldn't trust him to play ball. Okay? So again, Obama does not fire him then. After this meeting, James Clapper, John Brennan go back to President Obama and say, look, now you have to fire him. You just have to. Well, now you already have a new president-elect. Now Obama's like, well, now I definitely can't fire him. There's no way. This administration is, basically a complete lame duck at this point, and we are not going to draw attention to ourselves now. Why would I fire the head of NSA with only 2 months left in my presidency? I mean, we don't need that kind of heat. We don't need that kind of attention, because now you're going to have some journalists and people digging and asking questions. You only got 3 months left. Why are you firing the guy? So he didn't fire him once again. Probably a savvy move. But the rats were jumping ship. They were shaking in their boots because they knew what was coming. And what's coming is what we were going to be seeing, hopefully this spring, this summer, with this, starting with this Bob Mueller report coming out, with classified information becoming declassified from the president himself and or Lindsey Graham, senator, chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, in regards to those FISA warrants. Again, that goes back to the Steele dossier, which we're finding out was completely bought and paid for by Hillary Clinton, the DNC, put together by Fusion GPS. Basically, Christopher Steele was just a good fall guy, a middleman, with a story that makes it interesting and compelling for spy novels in Hollywood movies. That's all that was. So they can do it, no problem. President Trump, he can't even look at a map of Russia, or there's a big problem. You got to impeach him. So this is important stuff, folks, because this isn't small potatoes. This is the highest levels of our government. This is President Obama himself. This is James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence. This is John Brennan, the Director of CIA. These people have our most valuable secrets basically at their disposal. They know what's going on. They were controlling this. Now it is spiraling out of control. Donald Trump became president. They were not counting on this. This is why they were so reckless. They just said, you know what, we're going to do this behind the scenes. We're going to have this insurance policy just in case. But guess what? The odds of this guy winning are just slim to none, and Slim just left town. Well, guess what? Donald Trump won. If Hillary Clinton had won, we would never know any of this. Not a shred of it. There wouldn't be any whistleblowers. There wouldn't be anything. She would have covered this up like it was her day job, and that's what the Clintons do. So no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This is at the highest levels, and that's why these guys are shaking in their boots. That's why the Democrats are scared as hell right now that this information is going to be coming out tomorrow. They can cry foul all they want. They can say, well, what's some redacted version here? What's going on? Once all this other once all of this other stuff starts to come out, they're done. They're toast. Again, that's the declassification of these FISA warrants, 302s, the FBI interviews, Office of Inspector General, those reports likely to come out again, hopefully this spring and or summer, the sooner the better as far as I'm concerned, dropping names, referring people for criminal prosecution, which we've seen some of that start to come out. Now you have Representative Devin Nunes of California coming out and making criminal referrals. We'll see who's involved there, but it's probably a lot of the same names that we have. And let me just go back real quickly here to Lisa Page, because this is how this ties in President Obama himself. And again, this goes back to all of these rats jumping ship and pointing the finger at each other. During that testimony, she revealed that President Obama wanted to be kept in the loop, up to date on everything. that was going on revolving this Russia investigation. Because that's when it kickstarted. Okay? He wanted to be kept in the loop on everything. And this wasn't just testimony. I believe this was either an email communication or a text message between Lisa Page and her lover, Peter Strzok. Okay? So, what's going on here? Obama knew what was going on. He knew Hillary Clinton had a private server. There's emails. He was emailing her on it. He knows. He knows, but he's the president. Can you get the president? Especially one as beloved as Barack Obama, because he could do no wrong, because he has a nice smile and nice suits. Of course, he doubled the national debt, got us into other wars, but he still got the Peace Prize, still got the Nobel Peace Prize and all that crap. So you figure that one out. That's what this country is more focused on. They'd rather have somebody who looks the part, screws everything up, but then you have somebody who's actually getting some things done, but they don't like his style, and we got to impeach him. He's the worst thing ever. You can't make heads or tails of it. These people are insane. That's why I call them lunatics, because this is how lunatics behave. So that's what I'm going to call them. So be very mindful of all this, folks. These names are going to come back up and up and up as we make our way through 2019. And it couldn't happen any sooner as far as I'm concerned, because the two-tier justice system in this country has to come to an end. Remember the name Mike Rogers. I think he's going to prove to be an American hero, not just for his service of this country, but for what he did telling Donald Trump when he was president-elect that the government was pretty much spying on him and had tapped his office there in Trump Tower and was listening in. And, of course, Trump came out and said, look, I'm being spied on. They're tapping my phones, and everybody said he was crazy. Looks like Donald Trump was telling the truth. Remember the name James Clapper. Remember the name John Brennan. Remember the name Lisa Page, Peter Strzok, James Comey, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, Samantha Powers, Susan Rice. All these people were liars, frauds, and cheats. They were at the highest level of our government not that long ago. We will see if they see justice. Let's hope and pray that they do, because nobody, especially in the United States of America, is supposed to be above the law. Stay tuned. It's going to get exciting, folks. Again, Attorney General Bill Barr will be out tomorrow with a statement and releasing the Bob Mueller report. Thank you so much for joining me today, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having you. As always, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out, and leave your comments. We would love to hear from you. This is the Capitol News. I am Alex Karitis. Godspeed.